Hey there, my mystical Mississippi mud pies. How are you doing today? Thank you so much for coming to listen to me talk a little bit about witchy and magical stuff today. As you can see from the title, I'm going to be taking you through some of the things that make me feel the most witchy, the most woo, the most spooky that I can possibly be. I want to thank my doll faces and Pop Tarts over on Patreon for voting for this video during the monthly video poll. Basically, I gave them a bunch of what I think were quite tasty options, and what they chose this time around was to know more about what makes me feel magical and witchy. So I'm going to give you 13 things that make me feel supremely witchy. Definitely, it's not just these things alone that make me feel witchy, but these are the 13 that I thought, you know, when I actually bring it to mind and I think about it, these are the things that definitely make it happen for me, definitely make me feel super magical. The very first thing that it would be criminal of me not to mention would be clothes, accessories, makeup, jewelry, anything that you can put on yourself that makes you less naked. Anything like that is definitely a big part of the process for me. I own massive headdresses and headbands. I own tons of jewelry. I have boxes full of jewelry, all divided into category. So I've got box files full of my chunky beads. I've got beautiful jewelry boxes full of all my loose pendants. I've got all kinds of different vintage bits of jewelry that I've inherited or has been given to me from friends. So jewelry definitely is a big thing. Putting on my war paint, putting a bit of makeup on, definitely makes me feel witchy. Putting an outfit together actually just makes me feel very magical, very metaphysically capable. I think there's something alchemical and exciting, creative, potent about putting clothes and accessories together. I really believe in clothes cognition, so that's a big part of it. This idea that you can train your brain and your mindset and your attitude by what you put on. And it's kind of like, you know, wanting to dress up for a first date or for a job interview, or wanting to dress a certain way to feel a certain way about what you're doing, or who you're going to meet, or what you're going to be doing, what you're going to be talking about. I believe in all of that. I believe it really works for me. I would say that I'm a style witch, if you will. And so I definitely think this is a part of my craft. The things that I put on, the things I choose, and the way I sort of tie them together, that's definitely part of it for me, for sure. And I will say that this includes nail varnish and rings and sometimes acrylic nails. It's funny for me, I find that the more witchy my hands look and feel, the more that can have an effect on the degree of like just everyday witchiness that I feel. Like right now, I have just filed my nails down. My hands are not moisturized. My fingernails are not painted. I've got a couple of nice rings on that I love that I've had for years, but these are not the ultimate witchy hands for me. The ultimate witchy hands for me, I will insert a cutaway right here to the last picture I took of my book over on Instagram. That to me is witchy handed. So I've got my witchy tattoos, which of course I never take off. But I also feel like, to me, those are just witchy hands in the way I feel about it, you know. And I have said to people before that when I was younger and I used to pretend to be the Wicked Witch of the West from Wizard of Oz. I still do pretend to be her sometimes, by the way, but I used to love her long witchy fingers. That was it for me. And whenever those plastic packs of Halloween fingers would come out at the shops, I would always have a pair. I would always have a set, and I put them on and just go and cast spells on the family cat and various inanimate objects, maybe my sister, I don't know. I was always casting spells with the long witchy fingers on. The second thing that definitely contributes a lot to my feelings of witchiness, mysticism, magical potency would be the arts, basically. I know it's really, really broad, but for me, just music, poetry and prose, visual art, that kind of thing. And I do think actually of fashion as applied art, and I think of style as somewhat of a, you know, very creative art form in itself. But yes, the arts, basically. So a lot of the time when I'm reading poetry that I find to be just incredibly potent and has a kind of metaphysical vibe to it, or a very almost like a raw nature magic root kind of vibe to it, if you will, I think I find myself feeling more witchy. There's certainly a lot of music that I listen to that gets me very much in the witchy mood. The other night I was sitting at my altar listening to lots of psychedelic rock. That kind of music just makes me feel incredibly like I'm ready to do something magical. In fact, I've got literally right here on the bed, going back to what I said about poetry, I've got here Dylan Thomas's selected poems. I've had this copy for a while now, since Christmas 2006. Thank you, Matt. One of my great first friends, my longest standing friend. So yeah, this poet, Dylan Thomas, I mean, have a bang on him if you haven't. Absolutely. This is just literally like a book of incantations to me. It's just, yeah, it's beautiful. Wow. Sorry, I literally got absorbed there. I love Dylan Thomas's poetry. So yeah, reading poetry, I write my own poetry. Sometimes I feel incredibly witchy when I'm writing my poetry, and when I know that I've nailed the poem and it's exactly as I need it to be, and I read it back to myself aloud, I feel very, very witchy and magical in that moment. If you would like to read some of my poetry, I do showcase some of it over on Instagram, on my poetry Instagram. I will leave the link down below. Come on over and take a look at my words. The third thing that makes me feel witchy is something I think a lot of people can relate to, and that is seizing the night. I'm very much a Carpe Noctem kind of a woman, and when everybody's asleep at night and the roads outside are much quieter and the moon is out or the sky is dark, and you know, it's just the street lights, the occasional barking dog, and it feels like you're the only person awake in the whole of your apartment complex or the whole of your town. Or I mean, it depends where you live, of course. I live in a sleepy little seaside town, so it kind of works for me. However, whenever I've lived in bigger places as well, where there's been more going on, whenever there's been more of a city vibe around me, I still love seizing the night. I love going for walks at night, although I am much less inclined to do so these days. I'm a lot more wary these days, and I prefer to take risks less. But I do still like to go for walks when the fancy takes me in the night time. And I just love to sit up and make art during the night. I do my best writing, I think, during the night. So yeah, I think the nighttime makes me come alive, definitely makes me feel more inclined to do things at my altar. Although like a lot of my readings for myself take place at night. I like to do midnight devotionals to the Mother Mary, that kind of thing. So yeah, the night time for me is definitely where I think a lot of that kind of energy comes alive inside me. So another thing that makes me personally feel magical and witchy is my connection with other witches online. So I do have a solitary practice. I don't hang out with other witches doing rituals and spells or anything like that. I do have some people in my life who have witchy or spiritual inclinations, or they read tarot cards. So it's not like I have no people, friends who do it, but I have a lot of online friends who in many cases are just as important, of course. It's not made less because it's a cyber connection. And I think it's also really exciting just to be involved in so many Facebook groups and so many different communities and stuff around witchcraft and magic, and see a bunch of witches online getting excited about the same thing at the same time. So seeing loads of witches, for example, in discussion about an important lunar event, important astrological event, or the upcoming Sabbath that everybody's excited about, or whatever. Or seeing witches get excited about something in the press, and seeing, you know, something being excavated or something being learned, or some sort of essay or article coming out about witchcraft, and people sort of congregating around that online, and you feeling like all the barriers between where witches live and what we believe in kind of get broken down as we come together online and gather online and get excited and conversational online. I think that is something that makes me feel excited, because I am solitary and I do want to be solitary. I want a solitary practice. That's what I prefer, and that's where I'm comfortable. And that's where I'll stay, darling. But for me, the internet kind of makes that okay. You know, maybe if, I don't know what I'd be. I know if I didn't. I was just about to say, I don't know what I'd be like if I didn't have the internet. Maybe I'd be in a coven. Of course, I'd be in some coven somewhere if we didn't have the internet. I mean, witches do want to shoot the shit, shoot the breeze, shoot the witchy breeze with other witches sometimes. So for the majority of us, that's the case. So yes, the internet, definitely. I think when we get excited about things together, witchy jokes, witchy memes, things that only we understand as a group of people, and you know, you can go places to offload or to have discussions or debates, and see everybody getting excited about the lunar eclipse, for example, talking about the moon going into different signs. It's just really, that definitely gives me a little something, for sure. Oh yeah, there might be a little something witchy about that coffee. That is superb. Okay, so next thing is how I feel when I leave the gym, or when I've done a Pilates session in my home. I just, get that lovely lift, that lovely biochemical lift that you get when you have moved your body, sweated a bit, exerted yourself, given yourself a physical challenge. I definitely feel charged up by that experience. I was just walking home from the gym this morning. I didn't actually go too hard this morning. I only did a 45-minute session. Usually I'd be in the gym for 90 minutes. But this morning I actually wasn't feeling it that much, to be honest. I was kind of bored. And I don't usually get bored during cardio because I'm usually really taking something in and also just enjoying the challenge I'm giving to myself. But anyway, this particular morning I was kind of bored. So I did half cardio, half weights. And then as I was walking around the supermarket afterwards to get a few bits, I felt the lift and I just love the lift. I love that biochemical lift. Sometimes there's going to be more payoff than other times, but there's always going to be some kind of payoff. And then I feel like I'm much more ready to deal with whatever's coming next in the day. And I feel basically enhanced physiologically. And therefore I feel also enhanced, in terms of what I can achieve and how I feel about myself. And so all's a little bit more right with the world after that. So that definitely has that kind of quality to it for me. Number 6 is dancing. Dancing makes me feel all the magical feels, definitely, especially dancing on a massive dance floor or in a massive field with a huge sound system. The kind of sound system where somebody's there checking the wind direction to make sure that the sound isn't like waving into a neighboring village and we're going to get slapped with some kind of notice. That kind of sound system, with everybody dancing together, enjoying the music, the harsh, tasty beats. That just does make me feel extremely metaphysically potent. So I've always loved that. There's something about that is so wholly and completely righteous for me. And I love it every time, and I miss it. I miss it very, very much, and it'll be nice to get back to it again. Number 7 is kind of broad, but I think a lot of you will get what I mean. So the feeling you get when you're exploring a new place and you're just wandering around and you've never been to this place before and you're just letting your instincts guide you. You're letting your senses give you this heightened experience of the adventure that you're on, and you are just curious, you're inquisitive, you might be in your childlike nature, you might be in your artist archetype, taking photos, maybe painting, thinking about lines of poems that you're going to string together about this later, maybe you're vlogging, but you're really sort of oriented in the mode of adventure, curiosity, learning, play. What's around that corner? I never know what I might see next, kind of a thing. I find that to be a very sort of witchcraft oriented feeling for me. It's a feeling that I can use in my rituals and spells. It heightens my mood and it puts me in a specific kind of mindset that I think is very conducive to magic and witchcraft. And I also just feel like my witchy senses are being set off by the feeling of exploring a new city, a new village, a new big bookshop that I've gone into. And I'm just wandering around, like an independent bookshop with just books piled to the roof, exploring little knick-knack and bric-a-brac shops, even thrifting, that kind of stuff. I just feel, I love the feeling of like foraging and sort of just sticking my nose in places and being like, oh, what's around there? Oh, that's interesting. Oh, it's a community garden. Oh, look at this. There's a section here. What's this miscellaneous book section? Just, do you know what I mean? Where you're just rooting around and exploring. You don't necessarily have to be touching anything. You could be walking around a little Italian village and just wandering around and just enjoying just the cobblestones or the like random coffee shop you found or this view of the sea, or it doesn't have to be that you're necessarily consuming anything, buying anything, although that's also really interesting for me as well, is just going around and looking at especially collections of objects that are thrifted or vintage. I'm like a magpie for that stuff. I'm such a magpie. I was at Notting Hill Market with my friend not long ago, and we were at this massive market stall filled with jewelry. I bought a few bangles, predictably. I have a massive sack of bangles. I'm not even going to say sorry. I love bangles. I collect them, and that's it. That's what I do. I collect bangles. I will not be sorry. Bangles make me feel witchy. And so I just was laughing at myself a little bit because I was so long at this market stall, just foraging, just rooting around, just looking for a little bit of treasure, something to just pique my interest. I just find that really magical and fucking fizzy. It's such a fizzy feeling. And I'm getting emotive and feeling a connection to what I'm like, a physical reaction to what I'm saying right now, because for so long I have not done this. I'm only just very slowly coming back to it now. I know for people in some parts of the world it's different, and it's not as it should be at the moment for being able to go and explore and go into shops and things like that. We're coming back to that aspect of things here again now in the UK, and it's just really surreal and lovely. Yeah. What's that film? Surreal but nice. It was nice to meet you. Surreal but nice. Is it Notting Hill? Is it when he meets Anna Scott in Notting Hill? I don't know. Anyway, moving on. Okay, so number 8 of the 13 things that make me feel very magical and witchy is cooking for my friends. Cooking for my friends, or making presents for my friends, or even just kind of like getting excited about and wrapping presents for my friends and making like the nice inscription in the card, anything like that. And also thoughtful favors for my friends. If I have a little brainwave and I just think, oh, that would be really nice for them, maybe I'll check in on them, maybe I'll see if they want that, maybe I'll ask them if they need this. I've just thought of this and thought it might be really good for this person, I'm going to get in touch with them. I don't know, something about that taps me into what witchhood is for me. I just made my very best friend in the world a stir fry last night, and it was there was a few witchy aspects of making it. There was deciding that I was going to make it, having the brainwave that it might be really nice for him because it was the day after his first vaccination, and I knew there's a possibility he could still be feeling a bit rough, a bit weird. So it was a caring thought, and then getting the ingredients, deciding what I was going to put in, making sure that I had certain things that I knew I would want in there to make the sauce taste nicer and to season it the way I wanted it to. I wanted it to taste just right. This is a friend who's ridiculously good at seasoning, so I don't want to get left in the dust too hard. And then it was the feeling of him messaging saying I'm really excited about dinner, and then watching him eat the dinner and just being like, yes, this is ace of base, baby, well done. And I was just like, do you know what, that's just watching someone you love ingest something you made with love, and you put loving intention and high vibration into the food, and you can tell that they're not just tasting the incredible flavors you bothered to put in there, they're tasting the care, the time, the attention that it took. That's just, yeah, that's witchhood for me as well, definitely. Little bit of an obvious one for number 9, darlings, but being at the altar, obviously. I think a lot of witches feel similarly. Being at your altar, your reflection space, your area where you have your magical thingamabobs and doodahs and whatnot, and where you do all of the shenanigans and the tomfoolery and the, your magical business, your witchy shiz. So when I'm there, or even when I'm looking at it, I definitely feel potent, magical, very much in my witchhood. And I've often said, I think I've said a few times on the channel, and I've certainly said it to clients and stuff when we've been talking about, like, in our witchy brainstorming sessions and stuff, that honestly, even just lighting a candle, even just lighting a fucking candle at your altar will just instantly put you into a more high vibe, centered, adjusted space. For me, that's the start of it. Striking the match and lighting that fucker, or getting the lighter and actually doing it. That's where it all begins. It's like, okay, and I begin from this point. I begin with my working candle, or I begin with my devotional candle, whatever it is I'm doing. That just, even that alone, even if I don't do anything else at my altar, that feels really good. And I also like it when I've got a reasonably tidy bedroom, because my bedroom can get frantic sometimes, and then I go on this sort of like, sorting everything out vibe. My Sag sun like goes away somewhere, and my Virgo moon comes out and goes, she's gone, right, sort everything out. And when I've done all of that and my dresser is clear and I've hoovered and everything is beautiful, then when I light my altar up and just sit on the bed, I don't even sit on the floor in front of my altar, I could just sit on the bed and just maybe even just be reading, not necessarily doing anything witchy per se, but it's just there, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, God damn, yes. Yes. Yeah. Number 10 is, I guess, another very obvious one, but because it's true, I'm going to put it in there. And it is when you know that you have just received a sign. I mean, is there any more witchy time really than that? honestly, when you lay the cards out and they are just the motherfucking truth that you needed. You know, you turn them over and you're like, okay, whoa. You know, or when you just get a sign and it's the sign you've been asking for, waiting for, wanting, hoping for, and it happens in such a way that it's like time stops and you just know that that was for you. When you are in devotional to your goddess and it's like you feel her at your shoulder, you feel her enveloping you, you know. This morning, so I'll start the story from last night. So last night, I was afraid to go to my altar. And I told this to my peeps in Discord, that I was afraid to go to my altar. I felt worried about being alone with my thoughts and feelings. I felt that I was going to be confronted by some things because of, you know, the lunar eclipse and the full moon. And just it felt potent, it felt important, but it felt scary and it felt like a little affronting. And I was like, damn, I just don't know. It's so strange, you know, but every once in a while I do feel a nervousness. I think I want to talk about this in a video. I think I might dedicate a full video to this because I do think it's something I've experienced. And so it must be something others have experienced, where there is almost an emotional resistance to doing something that you know could really plug you into so much majesty, yes, but so much truth and so much intense, you know, what's even the word? Just, what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, I'll think about it and I'll put it into a more complete video. But I was really nervous about it last night. I decided it got too late. So I just did some journaling and I went to bed. And then the next day, this morning, my best friend messaged me and told me that during an episode of sleep paralysis, because he's prone to it, he saw hell. He saw hell very clearly and distinctly. Because I said, how did you know it was hell? And he said, she literally had half a face, like it was her. And he described it. He said he wasn't afraid of her. I think he said he wasn't afraid of her. I'd love to read the messages, but they're on the phone and I'm filming on the phone. But I knew straight away, it sent these, you know, the good chills. It put these good chills all through my body. I was like, that's her. Because it was like your sleep paralysis was a portal. And she couldn't get to me last night. Like, there's various reasons that she couldn't get to me. It's not just that I didn't go to my altar. I was numbing out. Like, it's hard to describe it, but I know why she went through my closest friend. And just the fact that that had happened. He's never seen hell in a dream or sleep paralysis episode or anything like that. He's never had a connection with her. He's never had any messages from her. And I barely talk to him about her. He knows that she's my matron, right? Obviously. But it's not like we do lots of talking about hell. So I was just, to me, that was it. You know, that was what that was for. It was so she could say what she needed to say to me, which she did. So it's those kinds of things. I just find that really, or like when certain cards come up and you know those cards mean a specific thing and you ask a specific thing and that card comes through and you're just like, oh my gosh, it's all talking. Magician's mindset is on and functioning and full throttle and the whole thing is alive and it's wovenly, like majestically interconnected, and it like shines silver in the sun of 1,000 suns for all eternity, and I'm a part of it. I mean, what could make you feel more 100% that witch than those experiences in those moments? Number 11 for me is when people tell me that my work has helped them in some way, that it has created a change in their life, that it has supported them in some way, that it's given them a sense that they can live their life differently for the positive, for the better. When I read positive feedback, sometimes it can feel a little bit overwhelming, but it does give me that feeling that at least I know I'm doing something effectual and I feel I should be doing this thing and I'm following a calling, and the calling is having a positive payoff in other people's lives. That definitely does have a positive impact for me on my witchhood and how I feel about what I'm doing, because to me it's all connected. I think when I was younger, I didn't realise how much my work as a card slinger and a spiritual counsellor, and even as a business mentor as well, that work, and as an author now as well, damn, you can buy my book Rebel Witch down below. I'll leave all the stuff down below. But doing those things, I don't think I always thought of them as an intrinsic part of my witchhood. It took me a while to get there. It took me a while to recognize that those two things are married to each other. And I remember one of the big gifts of talking to a specific woman called Katrina Clark, who is amazing, and I will leave some links down below to her stuff, but I don't think she works online anymore, but like just so amazing. This individual is so amazing. And I remember she was one of the people, I had a session with her a long time ago, and she said to me, you have to start to realize, Kellyanne, that your business is alive. Your work that you're doing, your content that you put out, your message, it's dynamic, it's alive, it's asking for things of you, and it is feeding and nurturing you. It's a symbiosis, you know. It's that relationship of synergy. And that was one of those moments where I thought, this is not just my vocation, this is my spiritual work as well. This is a lot to do with my spiritual journey too. You know, those are things can't be separated from each other. And that was very potent to recognize that. So whenever I realized that that has helped in some way, when people tell me that reading Rebel Witch has helped, when people tell me after a session that it changed things for them for the better, that is very, very witchy and magical to me. Number 12 is my dreams. Sometimes I just have certain dreams that I wake from and I go, oh my good goddess on a spoon with peanut butter. That was just a big juicy bunch of spiritual downloads just quilted in all this delicious symbolic custard, and I lie there in bed and I just think, oh, it's so witchy. That was so witchy and mystical and cool, and I'm going to sit here and sort of dissect it and pull it apart. And sometimes I'll remember certain fragments of dreams later on in the day and I'll just go, you know, and it just puts things together. I think that's really, really exciting. Sometimes it's a dream that's so obvious. There's nothing mystical about all my dreams, for sure. The other night I just had a dream. It was kind of a bit of a nightmare. I woke up with a start and it was literally about something that I've been worried about that I haven't been dealing with. That is just a piece of something I had to deal with, basically. And I was like, oh my God, they're gonna have to deal with that. It's gonna be bad. And then I was like, oh, that's something I need to do today. That's literally in the list of things in my file of facts that I need to do today. Boring. I mean, obviously not a witchy dream, but some witchy dreams, some dreams are just like big dreams, you know. Another obvious one, definitely another obvious one, baby cakes, but a good one to end. This is the 13th thing that makes me feel witchy and magical, and that is when my spells work and I look at what has happened and I say to myself, my work here is done. Sewn up in a lovely pink witchy bow, darling. It's such a lovely feeling, isn't it, when you do a spell and it comes together and you look at it and you're like, oh, those are my results. Yeah, that just, I mean, come on, that's just, of course. There's nothing really much else to say about that, so I'll just leave it there. But yeah, when spells work, when you put a spell into process and you see the delicious fruits of your magical labor, that's another thing that obviously makes one feel very witchy. So with all of this being said, these are my 13 things that make me feel magical and witchy. I hope you have not been playing the shot game where you took a drink every time I said magical or witchy, because you are definitely dead. So RIP you. And please let me know down in the comments what makes you feel the most magical and witchy. Do you agree with any of the things that I said in my list? If so, which numbers? And is there anything really unusual that makes you feel magical or witchy? Let me know. Anything that I didn't mention here, anything that really just doesn't make you feel magical or witchy, that makes you feel less magical or witchy. If you would like to know the 8 things that definitely make me feel less magical and witchy and how I deal with them, I'm having that little party over on Patreon now. So if you would like to become a dollface or a pop-tart over on Patreon, you get access to my Afterthoughts video series. And that's where anytime I have other thoughts that I feel I want to share and add on top of something I make for YouTube, I move the party over to Patreon and we go into the conversation there. So if you want to know what the 8 things are that really kill it for me when it comes to witchiness and how I deal with them, there will be an Afterthoughts episode up today. Darlings, if you would like to talk to me about your witchcraft journey, you can book a brainstorming session with me. You can also book a solitary witch reading if you would like to know what the cards have to say about where you're going with your witchcraft, what your strengths and weaknesses are, and what might be coming up for you. And until next time, so much love, and keep it weird and keep it witchy, darlings. Blessed be. Mwah.